I'm getting there. How are you?
Yeah, I think we've both been have had a difficult week. We've been struggling to get through this bout of Perth's winter flu. Mind you, you are sounding a lot better from when I earlier spoke to you, which is great. Glad you made
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
So you're all comfortable and you're ready for some questions, hard questions about what's been happening with you in your life recently.
Oh, not too hard. Be gentle with me.
Be gentle. Okay, I think I can manage that. Now let's see. Do we have any visitors with us at the moment? Not at this stage.
We're
Okay, that's
live,
fine.
yeah.
Thank you for that, Sharon. Okay. Well, with a lot of, I suppose, other people who've read your book, No More Bills,
Never pay bills.
Never Pay Bills, Never Pay Bills. I mean, the name is Never Pay Bills. I mean, where did that name come from?
Well, it comes from the philosophy, I guess, that's in the book, which is about financial empowerment.
Right.
Um, so, yeah, it was kind of a logical extension of what I wanted to say, or really the essence of what I wanted to say in the book.
Uh, Never Pay Bills. I mean, it got me thinking, like, never pay bills. How can that be? Is that the kind of
Well, you'll have to get
response
the
you want
book.
to provoke? Yes, I know, but you can see that that's the emotion that it invoked. It's like, how can that be? And yeah, great incentive. Exactly. You have to read the book to find out. Exactly. Never pay bills. So the journey to there is it must be must there must be a story behind how you managed to produce Never Pay Bills and for it to become a #1 bestseller on Amazon.com. You must be very proud of that.
Yes, yeah, and I only found out because someone had purchased it and they sent me a message on Facebook saying this book's amazing and it's changed my life, and I was just like, oh wow, well if she's purchased it, I wonder how many more people have purchased it lately, because Amazon don't tell you, they don't give you the statistics because they change every hour, unlike say the New York Times bestseller list, which only comes out once a month.
Yeah.
Amazon updates their sales constantly. So instead of sending you a barrage of emails all the time, they just don't tell you. So I thought I'll check it out, how many I've sold. And then when I went to the stats, I was like, that says #1. And I was
Tell
like,
me what that
that's
feeling was
weird.
like. What was that feeling like,
Yeah.
Sharon, when we saw those
Oh, it's
words,
great.
#1?
Yeah, I was dancing around the lounge room. I was so excited. It
do we
was
get
very,
it?
very.
Do we get a replay of that moment?
No.
No. Okay, that's fine. You imagine so obviously ecstatic and rightly so. I mean, you'd be in a category of a limited few who have achieved that. Do you want
Yeah.
to share a bit about your journey of getting there?
Yeah, well, how early do you want me to start?
Go as far back as you
I've
want to
always
say.
been interested in finance. I can remember even when I was a little girl, my mum used to give us pocket money,
On the
and she
financial review
used
to
to,
read.
she gave, this is even before I could read.
Right.
When we used to go to Sunday school when we were really young, she used to give me like two 10-cent pieces and one 2-cent piece. And so the 2-cent piece was to pay a tithe, or 10% of the 20 cents pocket money that we got. And so we used to go to Sunday school and I put the 2 cents in the offering plate, and the other 20 cents I would, because I liked lollies, and I would go, we lived on a farm just outside of Tamworth, near Moonby actually, and I would go to the only place in town, which was the service station, but they had lollies there, and I would ask the man for 20 cents worth of lollies, and then I would hand up my 10 cents and say, only got 10 cents. And he'd say, that's all right, and give me the full bag of lollies. And then I would come back and I'd sell that to my brother for 20 cents because he was too lazy to
Good
go across to the
hustle.
shop. So
And
I
how old
would
were you then?
get, would have been about 3 or 4.
Wow, that's very early.
Yeah, because we moved from that farm when I was 4. So, and yes, I would have made 50% profit on that sale, and then I would spend my pocket money and the profits on more lollies, so I could go back another 3 times and do that every week.
You are the lolly queen, Sharon. Good hustle there. um, okay, so the the tithe. I mean, it's a biblical term. Maybe not everyone's familiar with the term tithe. Do you want to explain that? Just that term itself?
Tithe just means 10%. Yeah,
Oh,
and 10% of your increase. So the Bible talks about returning that to God. So it says that that's God's, and whatever increase you get, 90% is yours to keep, and 10% is to be returned to God. And so I really thank God for my mother teaching me that principle when I was really young, when it was only about 2 cents, because
yeah,
it became a habit um, for me, and it's always worked, so I keep doing it.
yeah. So it's laid the foundation, so to speak, of your your view to money and that your allocation of finance.
Definitely, yeah, yeah. So
Great,
it
great
taught me all
biblical
sorts of
grounding to
things.
have. Okay, so here we are, a little country town. You're buying lollies. What's the next step that you started applying these financial principles?
Well, I always sort of had an interest in finances and money. I remember going with my mother, again when I was still quite young, going to the post office, as it was then, and you'd have to line up. They had this sort of corralling system, like they still do at some airports. We had to line
Oh,
up
yes.
between all things. And it used to take
Bit
a long time to
amazing.
get to the counter. When you're a little kid, it seems like forever. It was probably only a few minutes, but it seemed like there was a lot of people there and take a long time. And then she would hand over the electricity bill and
Right.
some money, and they would take all of the money and the top half of the bill and just give her the bottom half and
The
put a stamp
remittance.
on it.
Okay.
And I just thought, how stupid is my mother? She hands over all our money for just this little bit of paper with a stamp on it. And when I grow up, I know that I'm going to just spend all my money on lollies. So I knew early on that I
I like
wanted
your
to manage
character
my
there.
money differently to my mum.
Yeah, I can understand. For a little girl, that's very observant. I mean, that's how a little girl would say it, wouldn't it? You know, like you're seeing money being why is she getting back this little piece of paper? I mean, is that it? Interesting.
Of course,
Interesting
we pay
perspective.
bills a lot different now, but that's what I can remember from when I was younger.
Okay. So, so you're seeing the, um, I guess, uh, you're seeking more value in the transaction process, even at a young age. So, what was your next financial step from there in your journey? What would it be? Was there any highlights in school or
Well, uh,
upper school?
yeah, I mean, I was always good at maths and always drawn to kind of mathematical things. I liked the accuracy of it and the independence of it. So it was either right or wrong. It wasn't up to just the teacher to decide whether it was good or bad. So
Absolutely.
I know in some subjects, like in creative writing and essays and things, I would think I did a really good job of writing, and the teacher might not necessarily agree, or one teacher might think I did a good job and another teacher thought I didn't do a good job. And so that seemed really arbitrary to me, whereas mathematics and science, I did physics and chemistry as well, I liked all the language of that was very accurate and independently verifiable. So I was drawn to those sorts of things. But it's funny that I ended up being a writer.
It is, but the content that you're writing about, obviously, you know about that as well. So
Yeah.
gives your writing substance, because obviously it's something you have a passion in from an early age and have learnt some good financial principles. Okay, so you started to see in high school that you had an interest in maths and you're learning, had an affinity with absolutes rather than some more the creative arts, etc. So what about your leaving high school? Where did you kind of go from there, from high school? Was
When
there
I left high
some...
school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and which I found, because I do public speaking, and when I speak to high school students, they find that quite encouraging, because
I feel
I
the same
had,
way.
yeah, it's hard for a 17 or an 18-year-old to decide what they want to do with the rest of their life when they've lived so little of life. So I didn't know what I wanted to do, but we had my cousin staying with us, and he was an accountant. And my mum kind of encouraged me that if you don't know what to do, then pursue accounting, because every business will always need accountants, and you'll also get to learn about lots of different businesses while you're doing accounting. So you might find something that you like doing because you're getting introduced to lots of different businesses. So I pursued accounting, did my accounting degree, and set a whole lot of goals of things that I wanted to do. One of which was I wanted to be CEO by the time I was 28. So I had a range of like 1-year goals, 2-year goals, 5-year goals, and 10-year goals. And my 10-year goal was I wanted to have graduated, I wanted to own my own home, and I wanted to be CEO. And I'd done all of those things well and truly before I'd turned 28, except for being CEO. I was a finance executive of a health service, and I was on the board, and I was, one step away from being CEO, but I wasn't CEO. And I thought the only way that I'm really going to achieve this is to start my own business this year. And that happened to also be the same year that the Australian government passed legislation to allow commercial traffic on the internet.
Right, and I believe that
And
was a significant event which also affected your life. Sort of
definitely, yeah.
provided
So
an
I've
opportunity.
been trained in internet technologies beforehand because government, military and education were able to use the internet before commercial traffic was, and I was trained in it before then, and I knew that it was going to affect businesses once they had access. But that was June '94, and that time hardly anyone had even heard the term internet. So I started doing a lot of awareness training, speaking at seminars and things, telling people about the internet and showing all of the Australian businesses that were on the internet, which at the time was, you could count them on one hand. And so I wrote the first training courses on the internet and
You were a
trained a lot
trendsetter.
of, yeah, trained a lot of big companies like Commonwealth Bank, AMP, First State Super, did the courses for Educom and City Desktop, and did a lot
Excellent.
of kind of awareness things when I first started.
And during that time, so doing all this training and being a trendsetter in that the rollout of the internet highway into Australia, and Australia, big business, it obviously gave you your profile and respect within the industry as being a go-to person for knowledge, I should assume.
Well, it was interesting because the industry was so small. We all kind of knew each other and we all shared knowledge. So there were a few people who were standout experts, and one of them was Stephen Frost in Melbourne. But there weren't that many. Most of us were all learning together. So I wasn't seen as an expert by the industry because we were quite small, but anyone
Right.
outside the internet industry saw me as an expert because I would be the only person that they would know in the industry at that
Right.
time. So
Okay.
yeah.
So, So due to some clever marketing and getting out there and putting, sprouting your or sharing your internet knowledge to the mass market has really paid off. And what kind of opportunities did that bring your way?
Well, I guess the main opportunity, the biggest breakthrough, although we didn't realise it at the time, was Email, which was Australia's largest internet service
Yes,
provider
I remember you.
at the time. They decided that they didn't want to do any web design work. So they were going to focus exclusively on providing access to the internet, and so web hosting and domain names and dial-up modem accounts as they were then. And all of the other things like web design they weren't going to do, but they took us on as a subcontractor to them. So we were their only and their first web design subcontractor, and that was a big opportunity. So every time they did national advertising, they did television advertising, some people will probably remember a lot of sporting sponsorships. They sponsored Brad
Yes.
Jones in the V8 supercars and
Yeah.
things.
I remember the racing car going around the Aussie Mail V8 supercar. And also about that
Yeah.
time, Sharon, if I just may jump in, and I mean, what year are we talking about here? 95, 94, 96?
Well, I started the business in 94. At the
Okay.
end of 95, we became Aussie Mail's web design subcontractors. Yeah.
Because GoDaddy didn't start till 1999, so
Yeah,
you're
a lot of things.
you're
Yeah.
almost 5 years even before then.
Yeah, well, in 94 when we started, there was no even
Amazing.
Netscape browser. Microsoft certainly hadn't developed Internet Explorer or any of those. They were still saying that the internet wasn't going to be free and accessible and all that. Bill Gates didn't really get the internet thing until a bit later. He writes
Yep.
about that in his books. Yeah, so it was really early days, yeah.
Okay. And now you're being very modest, Sharon. You haven't been you've been very modest about jumping on my leads, my hints about any special events happening during that time. Tell me about this $10,000 a night epiphany that you had.
Okay. So that was in '96. So we were Aussie Mail subcontractors by this time, and um, the Minister of Education in New South Wales was having a very bad week. Every night on the news, there was some kind of scandal or mistake or outrage, probably fed to the media by his opposition at the time, I imagine. And so he contacted Aussie Mail. He wanted to have a good news week. And never before in Australia had a government white paper been published on the web. And so he decided that it would be a good idea to publish this 50-page report that he had on the web. And he decided that the day before he was having a press conference to launch this paper. So it was a big
Pressure.
opportunity because we had to charge exactly what Aussie Mail told us to charge, which was $100 per screen. And at the time, with the sort of smaller monitors, that was half an A4 page. So it meant that it was a $10,000 job.
Right.
And I had to come up with hand coding 100 screens overnight. So I knew it was going to be a really tight deadline, but I
And a
learnt
late
to
night.
say yes. I learnt to say yes and kind of put pressure on myself and see what I could achieve during that time. So I said yes, and we did achieve it. So that night, earning $10,000 in one night
Yes.
really changed my view of a lot. I really started to think about. I felt like God actually asked me the question: if you can do this once, can you do it again? If you can earn $10,000 on one night, why can't you earn $10,000 every night?
Yep. Just
And
replicate the same process.
yeah, so I first of all I sort of sat down and started writing out, well, if I did earn $10,000 every night, how long would it take me to pay off my $100,000 mortgage and things like that? And it was sort of like, oh, I could do that in less than 2 weeks, which was mind-blowing for me. I mean, I had grown up with my
Mind-blowing
parents.
for you, Sharon, mind-blowing for a lot of people.
I guess it is, yeah. So because I'd seen my parents, still paying their mortgage. So at this stage, my parents, which had started paying off mortgages, before I was born, were still paying off a mortgage at this stage, even though I'd moved out of the home by then. And so I knew that it normally took longer to pay that off. So, excuse me, I'm going to have a cough.
Yes. Feel better?
Yeah, so that was a $10,000 night, and out of that, I decided to analyse exactly what was different about that client compared to other clients that I had that were maybe $100 a night, and so yeah, we got a lot more intentional about certain things in the business.
So you focus on that winning formula for that specific night, that 10,000 night, and you thought, okay, wow, yeah, that's okay, that's good. It's good. So focusing on what works great.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Now, how's your personal life going at this stage? Are you a student, or feel free to have a drink of water if you need to. So, are you a single woman at this stage, or?
I am.
Okay. And so, moving on from the 10,000 night, you had this wonderful account opportunity, being the right time in the industry. You actually positioned yourself in the industry at the right time, and were successful to win that contract. And then moving on from that, what would be the next big event? Was it a personal event, or was it a business event? Or?
Probably the next big thing was, I got married in '97, and then at the beginning of '98, decided to enrol in full-time Bible college,
Right.
and so that was big. And on the first week in Bible college, might have even been the first day. I'm not sure exactly when it was, but it's very early on. I remember I was standing. This is at C3 in Oxford Falls over east, and I was standing at the front of the church on the altar, and it was sort of worship time, so most people around me were kind of singing, and I was just asking God, how's this going to work? It wasn't
Financially,
a doubt sort of thing. It wasn't an anxious thing. It was more just a curiosity, because I knew that because I was going to Bible college now full time, I wouldn't have that time in the business anymore.
Yeah.
So that the revenue of the business would go down. And I knew that my expenses would go up because I had to buy college books, I had to pay college fees, which were quite expensive. I had to, pay petrol to drive to college every day, and I obviously had to buy coffee at college to get through that second lecture.
Essential.
And if you're going to have a coffee, you may as well have a finger bun. So I knew my expenses were going to go up, my revenue was going to go down, and we were doing okay at that time, but we weren't doing fantastically well. And so I was just like, God, how's this going to work? And I remember hearing very strongly and being very certain that God was like, how dare you think if you're going to seek first the kingdom of God that I'm going to take things away from you? Because the Bible says if you seek first the kingdom of God, everything will be added to you. And so that was another real turning point for me, yeah.
Okay, so God's speaking to you. So you've got assurance that you're going to go to Bible college. What was the objective of going to Bible college?
Sorry, what was
the objective of going to Bible college?
It was real. I'd always wanted to go, even when I was a little girl. I can remember my cousins lived on a farm next to us, and my other cousin went to Bible college, and I couldn't even say Bible college. I used to call it Bible sausage. And I asked my cousin, what is Bible sausage? And she said, it's a school for people who love Jesus. Because I was really young at this stage. I hadn't started school. And so I got excited because I knew I loved Jesus, and I knew that I was going to start school soon because my elder brother had already started school. And this seemed pretty exciting because I knew that he got to go away all day without mum. And I just thought that sounded so grown up and so adventurous. And so I thought I was going to be starting Bible sausage when I started school. And when I got to school and found out that not everyone at Bible sausage loved Jesus because it wasn't Bible sausage, I was very upset. And I said to Mum, not everyone loves Jesus. And she said, oh, that's not Bible sausage. That's just a normal public school. You can't go to Bible sausage until you're much older. And I was pretty devastated. So getting the opportunity to go, there wasn't really any objective other than I'd always wanted to go. And I didn't know why or where it was going to lead. I didn't really have any sort of career aspirations or anything. I just wanted to be there. I felt like it had taken too long to get there.
Right. Wow, that's wonderful. So it was like a step of faith and you weren't too sure. So at what point did you actually start writing?
Well, that was after Bible college. Well, I should take a step back. While I was at Bible college,
right,
I felt like...
They were a student millionaire, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I did. I made my first $1 million while I was a full-time student. And student millionaires are not that common, but a lot of people have become millionaires or at least started their $1 million businesses or $1 billion businesses while they were students. So you probably know of Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook.
I've heard of them.
Google guys, yeah. There's lots of others, Pizza Hut, FedEx, Puff Daddy. There's lots of people who've started when they're a student. And so, yeah, I made my first $1 million when I was a student. I remember the accountant saying, I don't know what you're doing, but keep on doing it. And I said, well, I'm doing nothing. I'm going to Bible college full time. So I sort of subcontracted out. I created all these checklists and systems and manuals and hired other students to do the work. And so I was really not doing a lot and made my first $1 million that way. But I started writing after Bible college. Someone that my husband was working with had written some books. He was a DJ in 2GB, one of the radio stations in Sydney. And he kept saying to me...
Interesting source of wisdom.
Yeah. Well,
it's there, there.
Whenever we'd hang out with them, we'd all tell stories. And, of course, he had great stories and he'd written them in a book. And he kept saying to me, you should write a book. And so he offered to mentor me, and that's how I wrote my first book, which was The Faithfulness Myth.
The Faithfulness Myth.
Yeah.
Faithfulness Myth. Excuse my voice. It's a bit croaky at the moment. Okay, so that was your first. And how did that go?
Yeah, it was good. It was a Christian book, and so it was only available in Word and Koorong in Australia, in Christian bookshops. Yeah. So for my next one, I decided that I wanted to make it a secular book and make it more widely distributed. So
what's the title of the next book?
The next book was Nagging Success, and I won't talk for that too long because my voice is starting to go, so I think we better get on to Never Pay Bills.
Yeah, we're almost there.
But I had a lot of I had a lot of media success with Nagging Success. I was on a current affair with Ray Martin at the time, and on Channel 9. I had radio interviews on lots of different places from Broome to Tasmania, Adelaide, Brisbane, and lots of newspaper coverage and things as well. Had some earlier press with the Faithfulness Myth, because that was the first book that was ever published on a mobile device. So it was WAP technology at the time, wireless access protocol. And I'd had media in Finland and Japan and America, and Wired, which was the internet journal of the time. It's still going, but it was the big one at the time. They did an interview and had lots of critics saying no one would ever read a book on a mobile device. That's just ridiculous. And she's wasting her time. And of course, now ebooks well and truly outsell hardbacks and paperbacks, and also the mobile particular, as opposed to desktop and tablet, are actually starting to take over more and more of that market as well.
So you've just finished writing Nagging Success. Your profile's obviously being lifted globally. So what was the inspiring point to write Never Pay Bills?
Well, I really wanted to empower people financially. So I've been in the financial industry for over 25 years, and during that time I've had to explain financial concepts to non-financial people a lot of the time. So I've worked in hospitals with doctors and nurses. I've worked in nuclear reactors with nuclear physicists. I've worked in all sorts of places. I'm always explaining finance to people who are non-financial people. And most people, even though they use money every day, they don't really understand how money works. So when you tell them how money works, they become much better at managing money. And that's what I wanted to do with Never Pay Bills, was to empower people to be better money managers.
Any specific people? Mainly
families and anyone who's sort of been struggling, really. Individuals as well, but families seem to, particularly when the kids are younger, and if there's only one person working, they seem to struggle with paying the bills the most. So that's why I aimed it at around paying the bills as the main subject.
It's certainly an attention grabber, that's for sure. So if reading your book as a family man, and I'm thinking there are lots of other families in my situation who would like to get ahead. So what do you think would be the radical difference that you offer in financial guidance or advice, if you want to put it that way? What do you think it is that makes a difference from going? Keep going.
I might just take a step back and sort of start off with, first of all, what is the purpose of money? Because I think a lot of people don't understand what the purpose of money is.
True, very true. Yeah.
And like when I ask people, they often say to spend it, or they say to pay the bills, or to exchange it for other things, and all those sorts of things. And of course you can do all of those things with money, but the main purpose of money is to grow. Money is a seed. The Bible tells us this in 2 Corinthians.
To grow how?
Pardon?
To grow how?
Well, you have to use it as a seed for it to grow. So if for example, if I gave you a mobile phone and I said this mobile phone is only for business calls, you can't use it for personal calls. And I gave you another mobile phone, I said this mobile phone, you can use it for whatever you like. You can use it for personal calls, you can use it in emergencies, you can use it for downloading apps and games and all the rest.
Right. Yeah.
Those two things, even though it might be the same phone, you would use them completely different because they have different purposes. And it's the same with money. If you use money as a seed, in other words, if you plant it somewhere with the intention of leaving it to grow, that's completely different to just spending money. So every dollar that comes in, you get to decide whether you're going to send that to someone else to make them rich, or whether you're going to use it as a seed to make yourself rich.
Now, I'm no financial expert, and that simplicity really, rings with a tune with me. I can relate to that, just in that simplicity. But the financial wisdom there it's really good. It's really quite helpful. Just grasping that concept alone, like I can give it away and make someone else rich, or I can plant it somewhere and give it an opportunity to grow. I like it. Is there any more you want to say on that part, on the purpose of money? I think I cut you short when you were quoting 2 Corinthians. I just wonder if you...
Well, it just says that the money is a seed. In 2 Corinthians, in chapter 8 and 9 in particular, but a lot of 2 Corinthians, Paul's talking about money. And he's talking about offerings and giving and international giving and support between the Greeks and Macedonians and the Jews in Jerusalem, and all kinds of financial transactions. But he says there, if you sow sparingly, you will reap sparingly. And so it's about how to use money as a seed. It's not about using money in any other kind of context. And that's the bit that I find most people don't do. They get their money in and they spend it all. They don't keep any to use as a seed. So that's the main thing. If I said to you that I gave $1,000 to a Wall Street investment banker, and I gave $1,000 to a homeless drug addict, who do you think would manage that money better?
Well, in the stereotype, I mean, you would think who would manage it better. I guess
it's not a trick question.
I'm just thinking about it. I'm just thinking, well, who would manage it better? Well, whoever is more experienced at managing money. I'd have to say the financial broker or banker.
Yeah, so we kind of instinctively know that some people will manage money better than other people. And we know that some choices are good financial choices and some choices are bad financial choices. But when it comes to financial advice, people often fall into the trap of thinking, if I want to be better off financially, there's really only two ways to do that. I either have to earn more or I have to spend less. You've probably heard that before. And some people get really creative and say there's a third way: you can earn more and spend less. So you can do both. But really that's kind of where most people think that financial improvements are going to come from. But I think that managing what you've already got now is really the key. Excuse me.
It's okay. The earning more and spending less concept is really at a cash flow level, really. It's at a surface level, earn more, spend less. But the planting of the seed concept, money being the seed, and planting that, is a bit deeper, isn't it?
Yeah, well, managing your money, I believe, is where the main increase comes from. So two people can have exactly the same income and have exactly the same expenses, and one can get radically better results than the other just from managing it.
So give us some tips. So two people, same incomes.
Yeah.
And one's how would you put it, making more profit, I guess, than the other. How's that?
So, so the essence of management is a direction. It's sending your money in different directions. So
Yeah.
if I said to you, I really want to see the best sunset, that's my goal, and I'm going to drive east until I see the best sunset, how successful do you think I'm going to be?
Well, I don't know. Tell me. I'm at a loss.
Well, I'm never going to see a sunset if I drive east because I'm heading in the wrong direction. So it doesn't matter how smart I am, doesn't matter how much money I've got, doesn't matter how much support I've got, doesn't matter how much anything I've got. I can be determined as I like, but I'm never going to see a sunset if I drive east because I'm only going to see sunrises if I drive east. So it's all about the direction. And so when it comes to money, it's the same thing with your money. A lot of people are trying to get ahead, but they keep sending their money behind, and that's called debt. So they made a decision before to purchase something,
Yeah.
and they didn't have the money at the time, so they said, I'm going to steal from my future self, and they rob money of the future to pay for what they want right now instead of what they can afford right now. And so once they get into their future, they're always having to like spin their head around and send money over into their past. You should never have to send money to your past if you've got a healthy flow of cash. So it's all about the direction. If you've got healthy directions, if you're sending your money, the first place that I check is money coming in,
Yeah.
and are there different ways that I can get more than one source of income? Because a lot of people only have one source of income,
So
and
having multiple
I think
income
that's really
streams.
dangerous myself. You see all the time when
Okay.
people lose their jobs and they get absolutely devastated because that is their only source of income, and some
So
people
give
have
us.
been doing that for years. Um, so that's the first place to look is what direction is in coming in. Can you
Yeah.
diversify your income? And then I send my money up to God. I return what is God's. That's the next thing that I do. And I believe
That's
if
the
you do that first,
tithe
that
principle
everything
you're
else is
talking about.
blessed. Sorry?
That was the tithe principle that you were talking about earlier, getting that part back to God.
Yeah, yeah. So even if you're not part of a local church or you don't have that same theology or philosophy, I believe that you should find somewhere where you can give where it's beyond you. It goes up to a higher purpose. Get that direction of giving happening in your world. Because one of the things that does on a very practical level is it
Yeah.
trains your brain that there is more than enough. So your brain knows every time something comes in, there's more than I need. There's enough for someone else. There's more than enough for others. And so that literally changes the physiology of your brain. You understand abundance when you do that. Excuse me again.
That's wonderful, Sharon.
Oh
That's a
dear.
really, I've never heard it explained that way before. That's quite insightful. I'm sure our listeners and viewers watching this later will really appreciate that and they apply that to their lives. So tell me now, what's never pay bills? You've given me a taste. I've gleaned it. I haven't read it in full. I will now sit down and read it in full. I'm not a never reader. I struggle to read my Bible as it is, as a theologian, and I but I see a need in my own personal life to apply some of these principles. So where can I buy the book? How do I obtain it?
You can go to neverpaybills.com.au
So it
and
has
you
its
can
own
buy it
webpage.
from there. Yeah,
Okay, not at Amazon.
neverpaybills.com.au.
Not at Amazon.
Yeah, it's also available at Amazon. You can search on Amazon for Never Pay Bills. It's available in the Australian store as well as all the international stores. So if you want to pay in Australian dollars, you can search for it on the Australian store, or if you have an account with the American or UK or any other store, you can buy it from any of those other stores as well.
And even easier, neverpaybills.com.au.
Yeah.
Sharon, look, it's been wonderful chatting with you today and learning about your journey to your success and the books that you've authored and the encouragement to those who are looking for ways to improve their financial position, to provide for their families, to get ahead in business, and sharing your advice based on a biblical principle. I've certainly found that insightful and encouraging, and I hope others out there have as well. Is there any last thoughts you'd like to share with your listeners?
Yeah, lots. I could talk about this all day.
Maybe we need to do part 2, Sharon. Maybe we should book in a part 2.
I'll share a couple more if I can.
Yes, you can. Your webinar.
Separation is one of those things that if you look at when God first introduces himself in Genesis 1, as soon as he creates something, he separates it. So he creates light, and then he separates light from dark.
Right.
And he creates sky and expanse, and he separates the heavens from the atmosphere. And then he separates the oceans. He separates land from the ocean. He's big on separation. And one of the things that separation does is it makes both things more effective. So if he created light and he left light with the darkness, it would just be this mix of grey, and neither would fulfill the purposes of why we need dark, so we can sleep properly, or why we need light, so we can see properly. Grey doesn't do either of those things, so you have to separate before the purpose can be established. And with your finances, if you'll separate things out, so have a separate account for savings or things that you're going to send over in the direction of your future, savings and investment, it makes it able to fulfill its purpose, and it makes it a lot easier for financial management. So I use the example, I've got an adorable niece. She's 8 years old now, but she's been having sleepovers at Auntie Shaz's for a while. And when she comes, we like to cook together. One of the things that my 8-year-old niece can do is separate an egg yolk from an egg white, because let's face it, it's not that hard. It's really child's play, and anyone can do it. You know, when she first tried, she got a bit of shell in there and all this, but with a bit of practice, anyone can really do it. So if you're making a pavlova, the first step is to separate the yolks from the white. Now, if I decided I'm not going to do that, and I made the rest of the pavlova, I whisked it all up and I put it in the oven, cooked it, and I got it out and I decorated it with whipped cream and put fruit on top, and of course you've got to have chocolate, bit of flake on top. And then I decided, okay, now I'm going to try and separate the egg yolks from the egg whites. How successful do you think I'm going to be?
Well, we might, yeah. I'm thinking souffle, but yeah, I'm not sure. Not good.
Yeah, I've taken something that is so easy that even a child can do it, and I've turned it into something that is so hard that not even a master chef with years of professional experience can do it. It's not just stressful, it's not just hard, it's physically and chemically impossible to do. And a lot of people are like that with their finances, because they don't separate things out first. They have a real problem trying to make things work because they're leaving it too late till the end. A lot of people think that savings is something that only happens at the end, after you've paid for everything else. If you've got anything left over, then you can save that. Well, that's making it impossible to save. And so often when I hear people say they're having trouble, it's often with either separation or the sequence of things. If I do that thing at the beginning, if I do it in the right sequence, child's play. my 8-year-old niece can do it. If I do it at the end, not even the most qualified person in the world can do it. It's the
So
same with your
that's almost
finances.
it's reflecting the failing to plan is planning to fail principle.
Yes, yeah. And again, a lot of people don't know what they should be planning with their finances. They don't understand the principles of it, but it is easy once you know how. It's like with a car. If I think, oh, well, my car needs petrol and my car needs oil and my car needs water to get anywhere, and so I decide, well, I'm just going to put all of those things in the petrol tank, then it doesn't make my car go better. My car actually decides to cough and splurt and go nowhere. And a lot of people are getting nowhere financially simply because they haven't separated out the things that they need. So they might be spending exactly the same amount of money on things, but because they're not doing it from separate accounts, from managing them in separate ways, none of those things are actually helping them get ahead. They're just coughing and splurting and coming to a complete standstill financially. So the results are quite radically different.
Right. Okay. So that could be the difference between families on similar incomes, one getting ahead and one not, by simply planning where the income is going before it
Yeah,
actually comes in. Before it actually comes in.
yeah, yeah.
And
And they're very simple
and
things to do. All of the things in the book are very, very simple things to do. And they're designed to give you power over your finances instead of billers having power over your finances. Because if you think about what a bill is, it's a demand by someone else that says, I want you to pay this amount of money on this date in this way. Like a lot of them will only let you pay by credit card or only let you pay by BPay or whatever. And so the biller has all of the control in that scenario. The things that I teach in the book help you to take back control and take back your power and say, okay, no, I'm going to do it this way. I know we're running out of time. I just want to give you a quick example. One of the things to look at is how you pay your bills. So a lot of people get their bills paid by direct debit, which means that they've given control to the biller to reach the biller's hand into their bank account and take money out of their bank account when
is
they
that good or
want
bad?
to. Yeah, and that's giving away your power. Doing the
Okay.
same thing, paying the same bill, but paying it by EFT, electronic funds transfer, like online banking.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
set it up and you
Oh
control
yes.
when it's going to go
Yeah.
out and how much it's going to go out, that gives you more power. So
I
there's
see the difference.
really
Yeah.
simple things that you can do that make major power shifts and give you much more financial power. But just because people have always done it one way, they get used to doing it that way and they give away their financial power without even realising it. So what I wanted to
Yep.
do in the book is to make people aware of ways that they can take back that power
Yep.
and be financially empowered and help other people be financially empowered. I really tried to give simple examples for families so that parents can teach their kids, they can have conversations with their kids about separation and sequence and all these really simple principles. Like if you butter the bread before you put it in the toaster, it's going to catch fire and all sorts of bad things are going to happen. But simple things that can show them there's a right sequence of doing things and you'll have great results if you do it that way, and there's a wrong sequence of doing things. And even though they're both simple to do, one's going to give you much better results. So that comes from largely the teachings of Jesus in Matthew 6, where he talks about everything he's talking about there is basically if you do the same activity but do it in a different way, you'll get better results. So he says if you pray, go into your prayer closet and do it intimately with your Father, and then he will reward you openly. But he says you can do the same activity, you can still pray, but you can go out into the streets and make a big show of it, and then you won't get any more rewards because you've already had your rewards. The Father in heaven won't reward you anymore. So he's talking about how to get the best rewards from doing exactly the same activity. And then he goes on to talk about fasting, and of course he talks about finances. He talks about the birds, how they don't sow or reap or spin or toil. It talks about the grass of the field. So they're doing all this. They're getting their needs met in different ways to what the heathen are doing it. So they're doing the same activity. They're getting their needs met, but because they've made just simple changes, they're getting completely different rewards. So there's an effortless way of getting great rewards, and there's a really hard work way of getting not so good rewards. And what I wanted to do in the book was try and help people to understand the effortless way to get great rewards, and so that they no longer have to be working hard to get limited rewards.
Wonderful, wonderful closure there, Sharon. On wonderful advice to leave us with on that today, especially from a biblical perspective. These principles have been around for thousands of years. And one element there, a bit of time we haven't touched on, is to apply these. You need to have an element of faith as well to believe that they work. It's like, so the challenge would be to taste and see. Taste and see.
Yeah.
If you're not a church person, there are lots of people who will be listening who are not church people. Keen to just family orientated, want to have financial security for their families, and perhaps the things they're trying aren't working. This is something else that they could taste and see by taking a step of faith and applying these financial principles to their lives, and by faith, trusting that God's going to bless, that they will see results.
Definitely.
Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah, well, finances is the one area where God says, you can prove me in this. He's actually, like, if you're an amateur, you kind of go, oh, I'm really good, test me out, try me, I can show you, I'll prove it to you, I'm really, really good. Whereas if you're an expert, you don't normally say, look, you try me out, you test me, you prove me. But God says, look, I'm willing to let anyone test me or prove me in this area of tithing in particular, bringing your finances to Him and letting Him bless your finances so that the 90% that you have remaining, it's like pruning a tree. Whenever you cut back on that tree, it makes it more fruitful. And it's exactly the same with the tithe. When you cut back that 10% and return that to God, it makes the 90% much more fruitful. And you can see it, just like you can see when a garden has been pruned and it blossoms and grows much better. It's the same with that. So God says, you can prove it for yourself. You can prove me in this. And so, yeah, definitely, and take Him to task and say, okay, I'm going to try things your way, and trust me, you will never, ever, 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 ever go back.
Sharon Jones, it's been an absolute pleasure and very insightful chatting with you today. And for those who want to buy the book, Never Pay Bills, can visit www.neverpaybills.com.au, or they can go to amazon.com. Is that correct?
Yes. Go to amazon.com and search for Never Pay Bills, or go to neverpaybills.com.au and you'll see all the links to Amazon there anyway.
Thank you, Sharon, for your time today. It's been a blessing.
Thank you.
Bye for now.